Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for Jack and Keith's Weekend Playbook as we continue to fight with Facebook, trying to get the show live, but whatever. Hope you guys had a great week. A little weather coming to the Northeast again this week. Maybe we had a dud the other day, but hopefully you're safe and sound and warm like Jack is in Florida. And with that said, I welcome in my co-host, a Boxing Hall of Fame writer and all-around sports gurus, Jack Hirsch. How are you, Jack?
Hey, good, Keith.
Good to have you with us. We think it's a downtime in sports a little bit when the NFL ends, but we've had an exciting week. Finally got myself into the Olympics. We've talked about it a couple of times that, with the Olympics going on, it felt like it was a little muted, I guess, the response to the Olympics. But with yesterday was an exciting day with the women's figure skating and the women's hockey team. And we got the men playing today in the semifinals. I was excited. I don't know. I talked about this before the show, and I'll let you go because I know you got a lot to say too. But watching the women's figure skating yesterday, which I don't always get into, I was excited watching this. Alyssa Loop, her story is great. She gave up the sport 2 years ago, and she's risen to the top of the sport by doing it her way, not just throwing yourself into it 24/7. And just watching her. She was having fun on the ice last night and skated maybe one of the best seen. And I haven't paid a lot of attention. I will admit that, but over the years. But I remember Dorothy Hamill and Michelle Kwan and Carol Lipinski, who was commentating last night. What an exciting performance by this young lady, just electrifying that arena.
Kate, no one has ever compiled this list to my knowledge. If you have to rate the greatest days in women's sports in the United States in history, yesterday might have actually been number one. Number one. You have the women's hockey team winning the gold medal, winning a thrilling overtime game against Canada. And you have Alyssa Liu, the first woman in more than a couple of decades, winning a gold medal in the Olympics for the United States. And it's going on at the same time, the competition, the same time. I happened to be off, so I was able to watch both events as they were unfolding live.
Yeah.
But most people who at work, unfortunately, they get back in the evening and the results do seep out. You can't avoid them because they put them on all the news channels and newscasts.
Very hard.
Because the event took place from Italy, so it's on delayed tape in the United States. But if you get to see it live yesterday, I mean, what thrilling moments for women's sports. And just, I'm not sure which order to go in first. The hockey or the figure skating, but we'll talk about the figure skating.
Both big stories. So,
Right. And the story was unfolding from the beginning of the long program competition when Amber Gordon, who was one of the favorites to win the gold medal, had a disastrous short program. So she entered the long program in 13th place, meaning she was no more than a long shot to win a gold medal or even a medal altogether. Yet Amber Gordon skated brilliantly. And she went from 13th to 1st. But the problem is, she had 9 more women going after her with a chance to pass her. And they didn't pass until the last 4 skaters went. And her teammate, Alyssa Liu, 20 years old, took time off from the sport for mental health reasons, reportedly.
She didn't enjoy it. She said she didn't enjoy the rigors of the sport. So I get it.
And but you get it, but a lot of people don't get it. When there's a brilliant athlete, so much goes into the preparation, they burn out. We saw it happen in tennis with Bjorn Borg, who retired at the age of 26.
Yeah.
The mental pressure gets to you day in, day out. You love the sport in a sense because you took it up to begin with. But then it gets to you, it gets to be a grind. It gets to be too much of a job. And you're young, you want to do other things. You don't want to be held prisoner to this so-called new profession of yours, a profession to be.
Yeah.
And she took time off, but Alyssa Liu came back, and when you saw her yesterday, there was such a joy to her skating. She wasn't skating for competition. She wasn't skating for medals. She was skating for joy, the joy of it, the fun of it. She was actually having fun out there.
It was fun
You
to
got
watch.
the feeling that if she fell a couple of times and was out of the medals, she would still get up and enjoy herself and continue skating, and she nailed it.
And that was liberating for her. I can understand.
Great,
Right? That's a
Amber
liberating
Glenn
thing.
did a great job before her, like I said, to go into first. But Alyssa Liu was incredible, winning the gold medal. And she seems like a very good person, the way she was consoling the other medalists.
Easy to
She
root
was
for.
hugging them. She was greeting people. She seems like a first-rate person as well, and that's nice to see.
Easy to root for. I mean, you see a lot of these, and they're 20 years old. They're about 20 years old, 16, 15, and well, like I said, I think they have to be 16 to compete in the Olympics. But still, you see these kids who they're out there looking like the weight of the world is on them often. And you saw it in some of these girls' faces, especially during the short program. Not quite as much last night. I thought a lot of them had more fun last night than they did during the short program. But you mentioned it a couple of times, as I did, the joy watching her. You couldn't help but have a smile on your face, not just because she performed so well, but she enjoyed the moment so much, and the crowd fed off that, I think, as well as her technical expertise.
But Keith, that's one thing we have to admit. We know nothing about judging in figure skating. No. I still can't figure it out because you see the analysts say, well, the blade of the skate was an eighth of an inch off to the left. And I'm figuring, but this looks great to me. It looks perfect. I mean, I don't get it. Or it would be like football to tryout. Well, the heel should have touched an eighth of a second to the ground sooner than it did. That's why we're not drafting this player. And I don't get the judging. I don't understand it because I always do the naked eye test, who I like more, who I enjoy more. But there is an exact science to it when you do your triple loops, your axles, and the whole bit. And I don't get the judging. I'm not criticizing the judging.
No,
because these skaters know what's required of them. Supposedly, they have the coaches that can bring out the best in them and make them perform what the judges want to see. But I think over 90% of the viewers don't have a clue exactly how you judge this thing. It's the naked eye test. And all the competitors look great out there, don't get me wrong. But sometimes a certain competitor, like an Elisa Liu, can captivate the crowd.
Yep.
There's an electricity in the arena. There's an excitement. And that's what happened with her yesterday. And it resulted in her winning the gold medal, and that's something the United States is very proud of.
And we should be, and everybody should be. And she is somebody that's easy to root for, unlike some other athletes who want to, use it for a platform. But
why with these Olympics, I'm noticing one thing, and it happens every time with the Winter Olympics. You don't start, at least me, I don't start truly enjoying the Winter Olympics and appreciating it until it's coming to an end. It's like going on a vacation you don't want to go on, but you made plans. I wish I hadn't. And at the end of the vacation, wow, I love this. You're just like warming up into it. And that's how it is with these Olympics. Like watching the women's hockey game. Wow, what a game that was. How dramatic.
Yeah, and let me just, before we go to the hockey, and I do want to get there, just the last thing on Alyssa Liu and what you were saying about the judging. I don't understand it either, because I could see every other skater last night make some kind of error, right? As small as it might be, you could see it. I didn't see her make any error at all. I don't know what a perfect score is, but if anybody was close to perfect last night, it was her.
Well, let me just say, it's so hard for the skaters because they have to strategize what they're doing. You take the greatest figure skater in United States history, it was probably Michelle Kwan. Yet well, get that remark. I love Rick, but that has no place on there. Come on, Keith. And I love you, Rick. You know that. But Michelle Kwan is arguably the greatest skater in United States history, the greatest figure skater. Yet she never won an Olympic gold medal. She won a silver and a bronze. And the year she won the silver, She was leading after the short program, and she was basically told, you have to skate clean, no mistakes, and you'll probably win the gold medal. So she was a little conservative, concerned not to make a mistake, and she skated well. She did skate well, but Tara Lipinski was outstanding. So Tara Lipinski gets the gold medal. Then the next time she's skating in the next Olympics, she decided to take a little bit of a chance and fell once in the long program after leading in the short program, and it resulted in her winding up with a bronze medal. One fall. That was the difference between her getting a gold medal and not. So the pressure these skaters are under, you fall once. And yesterday also with Amber Glenn, she nearly fell. Her hand touched the ice. She still was given very high grades.
Yeah, she didn't fall.
Really high grades. But just one fall, there's so much pressure yonder.
And to me, I can see that, right? That's an obvious mistake, and I see that. And listen, I have to defend Rick real quick. I get what his point is that I think the technical aspect of it's similar in the technical aspect of boxing and figure skating and maybe some other sports that are scored by judges, that you miss out on some of the more nuanced things that they might be deducting points for. So
no, Rick, I misunderstood. My apologies to you, Rick. It's different, Rick. It's different because in boxing, some of these judges, the way they score certain rounds, there's a certain bias there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, Rick, whether you see that bias in figure skating with the judges. It might study with nationalities. There was the controversy with Nancy Kerrigan years ago, whether she skated good enough for the gold medal. And the executives at CBS that telecast those Winter Olympics reportedly were very upset because it would have made for such a sensational story after she was attacked to come back and win the gold medal. If she was attacked by Tanya Harding's people. I guess it's bias in most. I don't want to say in all judging. Look, I don't think there's bias with the officials in the NFL and Major League Baseball. Even though if an umpire doesn't like a player, there could be bias in called balls and strikes. I saw it happen to Roberto Alomar when he was struck out. He was the last out in the playoffs after he had spit on John Hirschbeck. Yeah. That ball was clearly outside. Yeah. And the umpire said strike three. It was if he said to Roberto Alomar, screw you. Well, I know it was outside, but who gives a darn?
He brought that on himself for sure. But
him and John Hirschbeck turned out to be good friends, actually. So kudos to them.
Throughout the history of the Olympics, at least the modern history of televised Olympics, there's always been some of that questions about the judging because you've got judges from all these different countries, and sometimes there's some bias. And as Brian said,
it's human. Listen, it's human to an extent. Even the analysts yesterday, Scott Hamilton, the other one, you could tell there was a little bit bias towards the United States. It was a little bit. I could tell in their voice. They were trying to be fair, but at the same time, you could. When I say bias, innocent bias.
But that's historically been the same thing. Well, I go back in history and watch any of these competitions, and I'll just stick with figure skating. Watching them, some of these commentators, and again, I get it because they're from the U.S. and their audience is much made up of people here in the U.S. and they always appear to be at least somewhat rooting passively for the U.S. Olympic.
Yeah, again, I apologize to my buddy Rick for misunderstanding the comment made.
That's actually, we were talking about refereeing and human element. There's nothing.
The gold medal basketball game in '72, Danny, with the United States getting screwed against Russia. That was obvious bias. I mean, that there's no way around it. And the United States men's basketball team, they refused to take their silver medals. They refused to show up That's a debate too. Should they have shown up anyway and received their silver medals, even though they got screwed? That's an argument maybe for another a debate for another time.
Yeah, it probably is. I don't like the fact that they didn't show up. Listen, also, there's other things too. We could have a whole show about just that game because there's a lot of talk. They got screwed by the officiating in that game, but also that the U.S. didn't bring their best team, and also the coach Hank Iba didn't let them play the type of game they could have easily beat the Russians at if he just opened up the game, but they weren't playing basketball like that then. So, so that, again, we could talk a whole show about that.
Yeah, I'd say it's a debate for another time, Keith, and you hit us with a combination of comments.
I got to get him in. I'll forget about him, Jack. You know how it is. Fleeting thoughts. Let's pivot to the women. We got everything we expected. They were on I think this is the third. Is this the third or fourth time in a row the Canadians and U.S. have squared off in the gold medal game?
I am glad that the United States, extra happy they didn't lose 1-0. If they were going to lose in overtime, it was bad. But the one goal that the Canadians scored was a shorthanded goal. Those are killers. You're on the power play and you give up a goal. Yeah. And it looked like they were going to, that goal was going to make all the difference. Now, I know the United States is getting a ton of shots on goal. I know that during the game, but they weren't really good shots for the most part. But they score with a little over 2 minutes left to tie it up and then win in overtime. This 3-on-3 overtime business, do you like it?
No, I don't. Again, any sport that just diametrically changes the game in overtime, I do not like.
The game could then go on forever unless you have a different rule, Keith. Only make it 5-on-5 like normal in the gold medal game. Because that's the last game. You could be absolutely exhausted in the last game. Could you imagine the NFL, Keith? They go 3-on-3, 6-on-6 football.
No.
That would be fun.
It would be fun. It might be fun, but it's not real football. So, again, why do you let things that aren't the real sport decide the result?
But Keith, if it's not the gold medal game, it can go on forever.
They go to a shootout after the end of one overtime period.
You got to eliminate the game. That's why in baseball, I'm a big believer, and this is a debate for another time, too, for the most part. 10-inning game, one extra inning, then line it up for home run derby. Your whole lineup 1-9 of your three best hitters.
No.
Listen, you're still strategizing. You're not the biggest Aaron Boone fan, and my biggest beef with Aaron Boone, and I can't stand him for this. He tanked the All-Star game. Not that he didn't deliberately lose when I say tanked it. It was a home run derby. He didn't send up his best players.
With all the problems I have about Aaron Boone, that comes in way last, way behind everything else. Nobody cares about that. You have a home run derby. I don't care if it's an all-star game or the World Series. Why am I playing the game if I'm just going to finish it that way?
Keith, but in the women's hockey game, what impressed me was how well they played. I'm going to tell you, they played just as well technically as the men did.
Gotten very good.
I mean, the skill level was tremendous. The only difference between them and the men is that the men can obviously skate a little quicker. The men are a little physically stronger, a lot you could say. Okay. And the pace with the men was, just a quicker overall, but technique-wise and everything, I'm going to tell you, if we didn't know that they were women playing, I mean, they have helmets on. Yeah. It's not that obvious in the beginning, and it wasn't marked down. You'd think it was the men playing. Same thing. You couldn't tell the difference. You really couldn't.
Technically, they're good. They're not as quick as you said. They couldn't play against men and compete.
No, obviously not. They would get slaughtered. But technically speaking, they were just as good. They played the game just as well. The passing was crisp. The defense was good. The goalkeeping was good. They were strategizing well. Yep. I mean, the men have just all the physical attributes over them. So that's what makes the men's game faster.
Also, great story too in this game, and the fact that the most accomplished and most decorated woman hockey player in Hillary Knight sent this game into overtime and saved the U.S. from.
She deflected the ball with the puck. She deflected the puck.
Still doesn't matter.
And listen, Hillary Knight's been great. She's been in how many Olympics since what? 2000 and
I want to say like 5 Olympics.
Yeah. She's been in the Olympics, Bev, and this is the end of her career.
Yep.
There's a great story with Hillary Knight, but I think maybe they got a little carried away, like as if Hillary Knight carried the team on her back. That wasn't the case at all. But she's had a sensational career, and she's an Olympic legend. I mean, an absolute Olympic legend.
I find it hard to believe that you advocate for home run derbies to win games, but you want to pour water on a great story like Hillary Knight.
No. It is a great story. Hillary Knight's a great story, but I don't want to make this the story of the women's team winning the gold medal. She deflected a puck that went in for goal. It was a smart, savvy play on her part, okay? She's a great player and a great leader, but let's not get carried away. Similar to the Super Bowl, Sam Darnold was good. Sam Darnold played well on balance, but don't overstate. This Sam Darnold led the Seahawks to victory. That's not quite the narrative that should be put out. But I don't mean to switch to football here, but I'm trying to compare athlete to athlete. Hillary Knight, great, great Olympian.
Very good. And Megan Keller gets the game winner in overtime, and that's awesome for her too. So this is a great accomplishment, as you said, a great day.
There's one defensive play. There was one defensive play, 3-on-3. Shame on me for not remembering the name of the play on the United States. Anyone could Google it and find out. So in this day and age, you could Google anything. You don't need me for information. Anyone listening, you don't need me for information at all. Anyone could Google anything. But there was a breakaway by Canada in overtime that could have won them the game. And one of the players on the U.S. team made a sensational defensive play, as Canada was breaking in towards the goal.
I just want to back up 1 second because I agree 100% with Danny here. 18-inning games in baseball, whatever it is, it's gut-wrenching, and hockey could go on forever. Yeah. I remember some great 4 overtime games in Stanley Cup hockey. It's gut-wrenching. A game can end at any second. I just love it,
Yeah, the 18-inning, I agree. Come the World Series, I agree, no home run derbies, let the games go to its conclusion. I go along with all that. Okay? I go along with all that. Don't get me wrong. But during the regular season, it gets to be it's monotonous because the games last too long as
Disagree 100%. I love that.
You're against the designated hitter, I'm sure, right? Now you're not. You're not any longer. But when it came into being, I didn't know you. You would have said, "Oh, I want the complete ball player. What are they doing?"
It's not baseball. That's not baseball to me. I grew up with pitcher hit.
Why don't we have two-way football players? Why have defense and offense? Let them play both ways the way the old timers did.
How about the physical toll that it takes on a player to play both ways is a lot different than baseball.
Oh, wait. They used to be tough. Chuck Bednarik didn't.
I'm not saying they weren't tough, and they did play that way. But again, that's apples and oranges to me. You can't compare those two things in this instance. You can't. You just can't. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Debate for another show. Continuing on with the Olympics, we got it. The excitement continues today. 10:40 today, we got the Canadians playing Finland, both winning in overtime. It's a great hockey Wednesday, by the way, for the men. 3 overtime games. Canada on the brink of losing. The U.S. Gives up a tying goal with about a minute left in regulation. And the Finns also had a very tough time. They were down 2-0 in their game and came back and won on Wednesday. That sets up the Canadians against Finland today at 10:40, and the U.S. against Slovakia in a rematch at 310. 310.
Can you imagine, Keith, it's Slovakia and Finland in the finals? I mean, are we even going to want to watch? Let's be honest about it. Unless you're an avid hockey fan, Slovakia against Finland. I think everyone wants to see the United States against Canada.
Yeah.
Everyone is rooting for that. There's a certain magic to the name. Okay. I mean, even the United States against Finland. Okay. But United States against Canada. I mean, it would be a rematch, or what was it called last time? The World Cup, or whatever it was, where Canada beat the United States in a nail biter the last time they had the big international game.
Yeah, Crosby may not play for Canada, but he's
he kind of won the two. These guys are, sometimes they play on the same team.
Yeah.
The United States, they won their last game in overtime, but they scored the winning goal. The player used, he scored on his own goalkeeper, I think. It's weird. The guy he practices against all the time. It's a really weird feeling.
It's interesting. You made me think of this when you were talking about, imagine if Finland played Slovakia, would anybody care? I remember we talked about
in the United States. I mean, in the United States and Canada.
Yeah, they're going to care in Finland, obviously. And they're going to care. And I'm sure there's places in the world that are rooting for exactly that. But it reminds me of 1980, right? People's memories, right? I think we talked about the other day that they say they watched that game live in 1980 when the U.S. beat the Russians right in the Miracle on Ice. It wasn't shown live because they didn't show anything during the day. It was shown on tape delay about 3 or 4 hours later. But also, still today, I hear people say, you remember when the U.S. beat the Russians to win the gold medal? They didn't. They had to play another game. They had to beat Sweden in a gold medal game. People forget.
Finland.
I thought it was Sweden. Oh, no, you're right.
Finland. They beat Finland in the gold medal game.
Maybe Sweden beat before they beat the Russians, probably.
I think the ironic part, no one can answer this. The Russians, to win the silver medal, I think it was Sweden who they played, and they won 11-0. Let me make something clear. The Russians had by far the superior team to the United States. The United States managed to win one game, and it was an incredible story. But make no mistake about it, if the United States is playing Russia in 1980, that's 4 out of 7. There's no way the United States wins the series. They probably lose the next 4 games, and lose 4-1. I compare it to when the Sixers played the Lakers. Okay, Sixers won game 1. When they had Shaq and Iverson, the two teams. The Sixers won game 1. The Lakers won the next 4. Maybe the U.S. would have pushed them and been competitive, perhaps. But then the Russians had a better team. Sometimes the better team doesn't always win, but they're the better team on that day or that evening.
I want to, Michael, I didn't see Great Britain play the hockey. I don't think they made this.
Great Britain's good at boxing. Michael,
yes.
I mean, that's.
I don't know if I've seen any, and I'm not kidding, Michael. I don't know that I've seen a lot of British athletes in the Winter Games at all. I can't remember seeing a lot of them. So.
Yeah. I mean, they're strong British athletes in the Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
But I don't believe they really made their mark in the Winter Olympics.
No.
All in all, yeah.
It's funny, and I'm going to segue again. Talking about Lake Placid, there's some talk here, and you've been in Florida, so I don't know whether you've heard it, but there's been a lot of talk these last couple of weeks about, and it can't happen until 2038 or 2042, getting the Winter Olympics back to New York State and Lake Placid, where they wouldn't host the whole thing. That'll never happen. But New York City would be a big part of this, but like all the alpine events would take place in Lake Placid, and I think that would be awesome. I don't think they'd ever make it happen, but.
I went on a vacation in, 1998 to Lake Tahoe, and I visited the Olympic site in the 1960 Olympics. It was like a ghost town. like looking around, this is where this all took place. I went on a tour there and so on. Let's be honest about it. If it wasn't for the United States men's hockey team in 1980, would Lake Placid have the charisma that it does? That's why people talk about Lake Placid. It would just be another place. And the Olympics were a mess in 1980 at Lake Placid, Keith. An absolute mess. Transportation was a horror.
Have you been there?
Amongst other things.
Have you been to Lake Placid?
No, I haven't been there.
We go up about at least once a year, and it's a beautiful, scenic little town. But I cannot imagine. Every time I go there, I'm like, I can't imagine that they've staged an Olympics here. There's one road in and one road out, and you got to fly to Albany to start your journey up there and then travel a couple hours. But they're still up there. A lot of the training for the U.S. team is still done in Lake Placid, by the way, for the skiing and the ski jumping and all that.
Now, Kate, it's amazing the way one famous sporting event could put a tiny town on the map for eternity. It even happened in boxing. It was 1923, I believe. It was Shelby, Montana, posted a heavyweight title defense by Jack Dempsey against a great fight in his own right, challenger Tommy Gibbons, okay? And Shelby, Montana had these grand plans about being put on the map. They guaranteed Jack Hearns, Dempsey's manager, $300,000, which was a fortune of money in those days, and he accepted to let Dempsey fight in Shelby, Montana, defend his title. So the first $100,000 had to be guaranteed. They managed to get that up, but the town didn't have the other $200,000. But some way, somehow, they got the second $100,000. But if they couldn't come up with the rest of the money, they would have forfeited the original money. So they asked Jack Hearns, Dempsey's manager, would you take the final $100,000 in sheep? And he said, what am I going to do with $100,000 worth of sheep in my New York apartment? A classic line. So, but what happened, they finally got the money up. The town went bankrupt. Kearns and Dempsey escaped on a train out of town. And the town went bankrupt after that. It was a mess. But they were famous, Shelby, Montana, because of that fight. Just like in Zaire, Ali against George Foreman. What is Zaire best known for? The Ali Foreman fight, the Rumble in the Jungle.
Yeah, and they spent like 9 months.
Funny thing, Rick. Well, no, you're talking about Dempsey.
Yeah, right.
If I could go back in time, Rick, for any one fight that I haven't been to that would have taken place, obviously, before I was born, it either would have been that fight, Shelby, Montana, to be in the crowd, knowing the town's going to go bankrupt, or I would have wanted to go back to July 4th, 1910 to Reno, Nevada for Jack Johnson, Jim Jeffries, to just sit there and see the mood.
Interesting. Another great show. All the events we'd like to go back and see if we'd had a chance. That'd be fun too. Food for thought when we have to tape some shows. Anyway, I'm excited for the hockey today. I know we are. Hopefully they can stand up.
The semis today, hopefully there's not a blip and United States gets to the finals, whether they play Canada or not. We'll see. The United States goaltending for the men's has been a little, I don't want to say shaky. It's been a little so-so, put it that way.
Well, that's fair. I don't know. It doesn't feel, the women feel like there's more natural joy than the men. They're there and, the pressure to win is probably worse.
Yeah, the women seem happier. I don't know what the pressure, obviously everyone wants to win. But I'm going to tell you the difference between the men and the women's hockey team is this. The women don't have an NHL per se. This is their Stanley Cup. You take all the men playing who are NHL players. And this is a great question. You give them a choice. You can, especially in the United States, you could win the Stanley Cup. You could only win one of the two or win the gold medal in the Olympics. I think most of the United States men players are going to pick the Stanley Cup over the Olympic gold medal. Now, Canada, maybe they're a little more closely knit as a country when it comes to hockey. Maybe they'll pick the Olympic gold medal. Now, right now, they'll lie.
I wouldn't
When
agree.
they're in the Olympics, they'll say, no, there's nothing we'd rather do than win the gold medal at this moment.
Yeah.
But if you give them a truth pill, what to take, that's an interesting question. If they can only have one of the two. Some of the players who've never won a Stanley Cup, who are playing in the Olympics, and it's so hard to win a Stanley Cup, they might like Connor McDavid. Well, Connor McDavid won one before, I believe. But
Canada.
Yeah. But I think they would pick the Stanley Cup. I do. I mean, okay, this is a good question, Keith, for you. What brings more pride to Canada now? We're not talking the United States. An Olympic gold medal or Stanley Cup? Now, you ask the people at Toronto, they rather have the Stanley Cup than an Olympic gold.
They've been without for a long, long time. So, to me, we've talked about. I'm a fair weather hockey fan, and I love international competitions. I'd rather see a gold medal than a Stanley Cup. If I had to go see an event, and you said you go watch the Rangers play in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, or the U.S. play Canada, or the U.S. play Russia in 1980, I'd rather go watch the Olympic hockey.
That's interesting. Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals. If it's your team, it depends on when the Rangers won their Stanley Cup in 1994, beating the Vancouver Canucks. That Game 7 was off the charts to watch. I don't think an Olympic Finals for the gold medal is quite on that level. Not quite. You know, that was off the charts because the Rangers hadn't won a cup in 44 years.
40.
So,
40.
Right. So I think the tension, the drama, there's nothing to really compare to it.
I still like the international competition. I'm a big and that's why I'm surprised it took me so long getting these Olympics. Actually,
yeah. Also, it depends when the Olympics first. Some Olympics invited tennis, and Chris Everett was asked about how it would feel to win a gold medal. She said, "Well, in some ways, it would be as big as winning Wimbledon." I love the answer. In some ways, it would be, which lets you know for the tennis players, the major tournaments were more important. But to Novak Djokovic, who hadn't done that well in the Olympics, winning the gold medal last time out, I think meant as much as winning any major. But considering he's won 24 majors, obviously he would have traded in a couple of them for the gold medal if it meant a deal. Like Tom Brady said, I'd trade in 2 Super Bowls if I could get back that one unbeaten season, that loss. He said, let's be honest about it. I would. If you're Brady, would you trade 3 Super Bowls for that one, give 2 extra Super Bowls away? Meaning you're a 5-time Super Bowl champion instead of a 7-time Super Bowl champion, but you have that unbeaten season. Now, that's a great question.
It is. I can't answer for Tom Brady. I can answer as a fan. No, I wouldn't trade him. I don't need that undefeated season. Although I like to shut the Dolphins up, but they're dying off.
You would trade an extra one for 6 Super Bowls.
I wouldn't. What's the undefeated really mean? Does it mean that much? I mean, I don't think it does. You won a Super Bowl. Nobody's going to ask how you got there. So I wouldn't trade any of them. I don't know about Tom Brady. He might, because again, that game, people look at it. Yeah, losing 2 to the Giants is not easy, right? That sucks.
You know what it is? It's when you lose the game. The Chicago Bears lost only 1 game in their, 85 historic season, but it wasn't the last game.
No.
It stings worse when it's the very last game.
When you spin it like that, right, and just losing the game, I might trade I might trade one of those wins for that win. Yeah.
Scott Norwood missing that kick. If he missed that kick early in the game, no one talks about it. No one cares that much. I mean, they know this, a big deal. When you miss it at the end, make it at the end, it gets magnified.
I still find it. To get back to the hockey a little bit, the NHL players have played. I don't know. I know they haven't played since 2012, but they played at least 3 or 4 Olympics before that. They have not won a gold medal since 1980. So it's kind of Interesting that the best players in the world. We say we got the best players in the world, but they don't go and win anything.
I don't know. Another element too, and I'm not sure what the answer is. We had Jim Berenger on, who you're trying to get here with a How much practice time did they actually get? Well, I needed Jim today to help us out.
I know. I couldn't get him on. That's my fault.
Yeah. But how much practice time?
There's not a lot. I mean, you're interrupting the season, right? And you got a week to prepare, maybe.
You're right. Danny points out the Warriors had a 72-win season, and they lose to the Cavaliers in 7 games. But it's the way you lose that hurts. They were up 3 games to 1.
That hurts a lot.
One more game, you win, and you nail it down. If they lost in 7 and the Cavs went up 2-1, this and that, things even up. There's a karma because one of the Warriors' NBA titles, they were losing 2 games to 1 to LeBron's Cleveland Cavaliers. But Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, the second and third best players in the Cavaliers, were out with injuries. Had they not been out with injuries, I believe the Cavs would have beaten the Warriors in that series.
You're probably right. Listen, and to me, it does. Not winning the championship, it doesn't matter if the Warriors had won 80 out of 82 that year. They didn't win the championship. And
that's the Keith Engle syndrome, unfortunately.
What do we
play? It seems like the Yankees could win 94 games, and you're saying that they're a mess. They're this, they're that.
You're
smiling while they're winning regular season games, saying now they're playing the way they're supposed to, but then they lose in the playoffs. There's only one team standing at the end of the year in sports. Look, the New England Patriots had a great season. Yes. They made me look like I had no clue what I was talking about because I had no clue what I was talking about when it came to New England this season.
Right.
I deserve all the ridicule that could come my way, and I accept it. But I don't want to hear what's wrong with the New England Patriots now. Oh, they have to address this. They have to address that. Yeah, teams have to always address things to stay on top. But there's only one team that's smiling at the end of the season, and that's the team that wins it all.
As it should be. You play for trophies. You don't play for, 80 wins out of 82 or 72 out of 80.
But it's so hard, with playoffs. It's so difficult. Only one team wins. And so, look, the Dodgers last year, they easily could have lost to Toronto. Easily. And maybe they should have, but they somehow won.
There were problems
in the locker room. He's talking about a guy like Terrell Owens.
No. He's going back to your very first comments before the NFL season started. You already alluded to it a little bit.
The Patriots. I deserve all the ridicule. This was my worst NFL season of predicting. But who I compare myself to? And you guys are going to laugh on the network. I'm like the Kansas City Chiefs of predicting things. They were 6-11 last year. Myself and the Chiefs had an off year. That's not like us. I could say I was injured. I stubbed my toe or something. I wasn't effective. It was a terrible year predicting.
Well, you're going to disobey.
I take receipts on myself. I picked the Ravens over the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. I take receipts on myself. It was terrible predicting. I'm
glad you said that because you're going to hurt yourself patting yourself on the back that way. So
no. Listen, there's got to be accountability. You can't keep reminding people of what you said that turns out to be correct and ignore the things that turn out to be wrong. If the things you say are wrong as much as they're right, it goes to the credibility of how much you know. But I just have one off season. That's all, Keith. I would have loved for Trinidad Shambliss to come out in the draft just to shut up guys like you and the rest in Tradius. I give James Martin some credit because at least he said Trinidad Shambliss is the next Russell Wilson. And even though I've never been the biggest Russell Wilson fan, he had been an elite quarterback a good number of years with Seattle. So if he's the next Russell Wilson, that's acceptable. It's not
Danny,
good.
Yeah, just the reason I'm on Jack about this, and so's Mariah and some others, is it isn't just that he didn't pick the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. He said there were big problems in New England. Big problems. There's no big problems in New England.
Well, maybe that's why Robert Kraft hasn't gone to the Hall of Fame. I don't know. Blundered. Great coaching job by Mike Vrabel and his staff until the final game. The final results leave an impression. If you asked me going into the Super Bowl, who is the best offensive coordinator in all of football, I don't know who I'd pick, but I guarantee you Josh McDaniels would pop into my head immediately. And the guy who's at the very least one of the best offensive coordinators in football, at the very least. He had a terrible game.
He had as bad a game as anybody for the Patriots, for sure.
I can't.
Agree.
It happens. The greatest players, greatest coaches have an off game. I mean, it happens. What could I tell you?
It does. Speaking of the NFL, there was a story that came out a week or so, maybe not even a week ago, but Brian Flores' case has been okay to move forward against the NFL and against several teams specifically. And Steve Wilkes is named as a co-plaintiff here. I don't listen. Brian Flores is shooting himself in the foot. I don't care how you look at this. I know you've got some strong opinions here. The guy wants a head coaching job. This is not the way to go get it. I mean, do I want there to be equal opportunity? Sure. But I want the best head coach. And as owning a team, we should be able to have the best head coach that we want. If Brian Flores is being discriminated against, that should be addressed, but I don't think he is, quite frankly. What are your thoughts on this whole topic?
Brian Flores, if he didn't come up with this ridiculous lawsuit against the NFL, he would have been a head coach right now for sure.
I agree.
When he was the head coach of the Dolphins, no one praised Brian Flores the way I did. I love Brian Flores. I would argue with Mac. Mac would say he's a good coach. I would argue he's a great coach. Brian Flores has a ton of baggage, and that counts. Don't tell me it doesn't count, because it counts for a heck of a lot. The NFL is about relationships too, and don't give me this old boy network stuff. Brian Flores is suing 3 teams at the current moment. He's suing the Miami Dolphins, who gave him an opportunity to coach. He coached there 3 years. So how are the Dolphins named, considered racist if they gave him the opportunity already? He's suing the Giants.
Hold on one second.
And the Giants have issues with me.
Back up for 1 second to the Dolphins. That part of the lawsuit, I don't even understand, because according to Brian Flores, he got fired for not wanting to tank games. That's got nothing to do with race, so I don't get it. So go ahead.
With the Giants, Joe Shine, the GM, was allowed to make the decision. Joe Shine came from the Buffalo Bills, where Brian Daboll was from. They had a great relationship. He wanted his own guy. Any GM is going to want their own guy. Yep. It makes sense in any walk of life. You want your own guy who you've worked with, you have a great relationship with. He loses out on that job. He gets interviewed by Denver, and I'm sympathetic towards Brian Flores. It was demeaning to him to get interviewed by the Denver Broncos, who had no intention of signing him, but the Broncos were forced to interview him because of the Rooney Rule. And it was demeaning. He said John Elway was half asleep or whatever. You have every right to be kicked off if you're Brian Flores. Like, why are you wasting my time? But sue the NFL, how they're handling the Rooney Rule. And Brian Flores, I decided to Google him. I heard he had problems with assistant coaches. I didn't realize to what extent. This guy would fire coach after coach after coach when he was with the Dolphins. He showed no patience at all. So you're gonna tell me you're gonna be sympathetic towards a guy like Brian Flores, who has no issues with firing coaches basically in a whim. One coach he fired days into training camp. What's the reason behind that? And he created a poisonous culture supposedly within the Dolphin organization. It counts how you treat other people in the building. That counts for something. And if you don't want a toxic environment, that's why Mark Jackson got let go by the Warriors. He was creating a toxic environment in the building. As far as Steve Wilkes joining the lawsuit, Steve Wilkes had 2 head coaching jobs already, in the NFL. And Steve Wilkes did a decent job with the Panthers when they went 5-4. But Rick Bisaccia did a little better job with the Raiders, and he got the Raiders to the playoffs as an interim coach. And Bisaccia, whose wife was let go. I mean, if Bisaccia was black, would we be saying, oh, if he was white, they never would have let him go? I don't want to hear that. And Steve Wilkes was let go by Kyle Shanahan, the 49er coach's defensive coordinator, because they weren't happy with him. Aaron Glenn then hired Steve Wilkes, who he had a relationship with, and he fired Steve Wilkes during the season as a defensive coordinator because the Jet defense was dreadful. I got to tell it like it is. Listen, discrimination is awful in society going back historically. It's absolutely awful racism going on. It's terrible. It's shameful what's going on. But let's not, in the case of Brian Flores, and I'm just talking about the case of Brian Flores and nothing more, he's not a victim here. He's really not a victim.
Equal opportunity shouldn't equal not the most qualified person getting the job, whatever job we're talking about, right? When I'm in an airplane, I don't care if the pilot is black or green or Martian. I don't care what he is, as long as he's the best pilot that can be flying that plane that day. I don't want.
But we're talking about Brian Flores. I'm not talking. Yeah,
I'm talking about in general.
And Brian Flores is
look at the Rooney Rule itself. The Rooney Rule itself is a joke because black guys, minorities in general, get interviewed just because of the rule. The Patriots flaunted the Rooney Rule, something terrible when they hired Mike Vrabel. They brought in 3 guys that I had a better chance of getting that job than the 3 guys they interviewed. So how does that?
I think certain teams should be called out. The Dallas Cowboys. I think Jerry Jones has deliberately not hired a black head coach.
I would agree with that too.
He should be called out, but you can't make them hire, a minority coach. You have to call him into the office. He's got to get what's going on, Jerry? What are the reasons why you're not doing it? He has to be called. I think the Giant organization before the bowl, they haven't hired a black head coach. I think there's something to it. Yeah, and I don't like it. Certain cases, if you have a coach, that's a long-term coach that's been very successful, like the Saints had Sean Payton for a lot of years, I can understand it. But franchises that have turnovers in coaches, I don't want to say frequent, but from time to time, and they haven't hired a black coach, I want to find out why. I want to find out exactly why, and I want to study their particular situation. That's why when Jerry Jones hired Brian Schottenheimer, I'm saying, really, Jerry, with all the potential black head coaching candidates, you're having Brian Schottenheimer now. You had the chance to hire someone before and you didn't do it. I don't like it.
And I agree 100% because that's a red flag that there's a problem there in my mind, correct? And when I say I should be able to hire the most qualified guy in my eyes, that does not mean that we should disqualify anybody, no matter what their race or creed is. I mean, again, that doesn't mean I don't think there's a problem in the NFL in certain places, and Dallas is one of them. And I'm sure there's other organizations as well. There's qualified minorities that don't get a job, and they should. And Brian Schottenheimer shouldn't have a job over, I don't know, Brian Flores. For one.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing about it is, if I own the team, there's a good chance I would hire Brian Flores even with his baggage.
Agreed.
But that's just me.
Right.
Okay, that's just me because I think he's an outstanding coach. But then again, how I would vet him in the interview. Why were all these coaches fired when you were coach of the Dolphins? It's abnormal. Well, the head coaches to have a turnover, the type of coaching turnover he had. And reportedly, he had a hard time, Flores, getting good assistants because they didn't want to come to Miami because
That's
he was
a problem.
creating a toxic environment over there.
That's a problem for sure. And again, when you got a guy who's suing over discrimination, how are you going to fire him once you hire him? Everybody gets fired unless you work for the Steelers. Everybody gets fired. And how are you going to fire him the next time? It makes it very hard to.
Well, that was Jerry Jones, reportedly, his logic. Look, I didn't like with Robert Kraft. He moved on from Gerard Mayo after one season. I didn't like that, but I understood because he had a chance to get Mike Vrabel. If he didn't move on from Gerard Mayo, chances are Mike Vrabel goes elsewhere, and he never gets Mike Vrabel as his coach. And if you want one particular coach bad enough, you got to strike when you have the chance.
J-Train's ready. Well, I'd hire him.
J-Train will be mad at me for saying this, but he'd be a good GM. I mean, even if J-Train had the coaching things, because J-Train has the personality and he has thick skin in the sense that J-Train can take it and fire back. He's durable. That's the big compliment. I don't have thick skin like that. I get a little ramped up. J-Train is cool and calm. I could see you coming into J-Train's office if you were a player, Keith, asking for contract extension, and him listening to you rant and rave, and you would be leaving the office without your contract extension.
I probably wouldn't have a job.
He wouldn't give it to you.
He probably would have cut me on the spot, probably. Which is fair. I think Jerry ought to call James, actually, because, again, qualified people should get hired.
Well, yeah, but with that, this goes back to historically, the beginning of time, there has been blatant racism.
Yeah, of course there is.
Historically, not obviously in society. In the NFL, there has been blatant racism historically from when the league started, when black quarterbacks, it took them a while to be allowed to play, which is ridiculous.
But
not in the case of Brian Flores. That's all I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
In the case of Brian Flores, Steve Wilkes, nothing more than that. Okay? He's not a victim, Brian Flores here.
We're putting a whole coaching staff together here. Jack's going to be the
GM. Coaches are getting let go. Rick Bisaccia, the guy mentioned, he retired as the Packers special team coordinator. He didn't have that good a year at the end with the Packers on special teams. They had problems.
Yeah, but they were, from what I understand, they were upset and disappointed that he left, and especially given the timing, I guess, when he left, because now they're a little bit in the lurch. He's a good coach.
How they in the lurch? Well, lurch, the season is time. I mean, there has to be someone out there.
Yeah, but all these guys have gotten jobs. We just had 9 or 10 coaches hired, and they filled their staffs out. So how many guys are out there of quality, right? So, what are you going to do? We're not going to get to a couple things because I promised Brian we'd end this show on time going forward.
You're 100% correct, Brian. The NFL has been terribly racist historically.
It's sports.
I was just talking about Brian Flores.
Yeah.
Steve Wilkes, that lawsuit, nothing more than that, but it has been historically racist.
Yeah. All sports has been historically racist. So I wouldn't even just pin it on the NFL, right? So
yeah, you're correct. You're correct on that.
Yeah. We covered a lot today. We missed a couple of things that I want to talk about, like the Knicks getting dominated again by Detroit, but we'll try to talk about that more next time as we got to get off of here. We got to start holding to start and end times. Jack's been a great week. Look forward to reviewing the end of the Olympics with you come Monday morning. Check out Jack on the debate show tomorrow morning, and I'll be on with 8 o'clock, right? 8 a.m. You guys are on?
8 a.m.
And I'll be on Sunday. I'll be on later today with the MLB update, and Sunday morning with the Stream of Consciousness. We'll see you guys on Monday morning with Jack and Keith's Weekend Playbook. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye-bye.